Hello, you're watching Proactive. Joining me is TMX Vertify Head of Index Product Strategy, Jane Edmondson. Jane, great to speak with you again. It's been a while since we last chatted. Congratulations on the success of the NATO Future of Defense UCITS ETF in Europe. I understand that's approaching a milestone of 3 billion in assets under management, and there have been a few follow-on products, right?
Yes, Stephen. Building on the immense success of the NATO Future of Defense UCITS ETF, ticker NATO, Han has launched a version targeting the opportunity of accelerated European defense and cyber defense spending. And that UCITS ETF has the ticker ARMY, ARMY. It's already gathered 150 million euros in less than a month since its launch on July 4th. And ARMY is 90% European NATO country members. It's focused on the ramp up of spending that's associated with the increase to NATO's mandate from 2% of GDP to 5% of GDP in military spending. And that 5% of GDP now also includes a lot of other non-traditional defense areas, such as defense technologies like cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, quantum, and autonomous solutions like drones, and now also infrastructure. And in addition, spending is also growing thanks to the ReArm Europe plan, which is underway, which is focused on reducing Europe's dependence on foreign countries, like the US, for example, for military support. And then Europe also wants to get to a point in the next few years where 60% of its defense capabilities are sourced within Europe. But of course, given that Europe is probably about 5 years behind in terms of military technology, that's going to require a lot of investment and a lot of spending to get there.
So, Jane, those are the NATO Future of Defense and European Future of Defense products, but there is another new product that's been launched as well, and that targets the Asia Pacific region, right?
Yes, we just launched the Indo-Pacific ex-China version of NATO. The ticker on that one is Quad, so QUAD, and it's the first product really to provide targeted exposure to the growing defense opportunity in this Indo-Pac region, which includes countries like Japan, South Korea, Australia, and India. And some of the catalysts for this exposure are the rising political tensions and in the region and perceived threats from countries like China, North Korea. There's concerns about the future of Taiwan. And most recently, there's been regional disputes, one just recently between India and Pakistan, and then most recently, just in the last week, between Thailand and Cambodia. So besides regional stability, there's also a strong desire, similar to what's happening in Europe, for regional autonomy. So this is driving a push for expanded regional production and innovation in the region to reduce some of this foreign dependency. So, for example, in India, they have a Made in India program that encourages Indian defense companies to develop, manufacture, and assemble products in India. And, in addition, NATO and the US are putting a lot of pressure on the Indo-Pacific countries to ramp up spending as well, given really the strategic importance of the region around the world. Most recently, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth was at a conference in Singapore, and he was critical of the fact that the countries in the Indo-Pac region aren't spending as much now as some of the European NATO countries. So, countries in Indo-Pac are tracking at around 2% of GDP, but that's nowhere near where they need to be in terms of the new NATO mandate of 5% of GDP. So we're going to see increased spending to keep up with countries like China in terms of spending in technology. And India is actually now the biggest spender in the region at 57 billion, followed by Japan and South Korea at 53 and 44 billion respectively. Australia is catching up as well at 37 billion. And I know specifically the US is putting a lot of pressure on Australia to increase their spending, given some of their capabilities to support the region. And the story is just not about increased spending. It's also about the type of spending. Similar to what's going on in Europe, the region needs to catch up in terms of technology and modernize, particularly because of the potential aggressors in the region. So they need to modernize in terms of air and naval defense. So lots of spending that's going to be occurring in this area.
That's what I was going to say, Jane. So it sounds like we can expect much more defense spending in the whole Indo-Pacific region.
Yeah, absolutely. And Quad is designed to provide broad exposure to this theme, to the this theme of spending growth and modernization of defense capabilities in the Indo-Pac ex-China region. And it really provides a great opportunity for investors. All of these funds are approaching near 100% year-to-date returns. So we've always seen this story play out this year, but we're really in the early stages of spending. So I would anticipate that this is an investment theme rather that could expand and grow for many years to come.
Jane, I hope you'll continue to keep us updated on progress with those ETFs. Thank you very much for taking the time today.
Thank you so much, Stephen.
It's Jane Edmondson, Head of Index Product Strategy at TMX VettaFi.